was that the Romanians used to believe, or they do believe that, you can't have a baby on Christmas Day, or you can't conceive a baby on Christmas Day, otherwise the baby will be born and it'll grow up to be a werewolf. And there's this other story about the Jersey Devil where this woman had a 13th son that she said was demonic, and he became this strange creature that roams New Jersey, called the Jersey Devil. And so I was thinking about all these stories. I was thinking about even the Demon of Devon, and I was thinking of, Jack, High Heel Jack, or whatever his name is. He's a blue demon. And she started telling me about this guy named Elliot O'Donnell. And Elliot O'Donnell was a investigator. He was a 14 investigator. And what he did is he went around homes. He was getting all this information about the folklore of this area, because people were saying that, around their homes they could hear little children crying and playing, and they didn't know what it was. They thought they were just ghost children of this little city, this little town. And there was a guy. His name was Anderson. But he had a family, and he was complaining that he'd hear things under his home. He'd hear screams, and he'd hear howls, and he'd hear, babies crying and everything under his house. And he thought, I think my house is haunted because I'm hearing all these strange things. So he called Elliot O'Donnell. He said, hey, you want a story? I got a story for you. And it's the story about how in my house it's haunted. There's poltergeist activity. There's children crying, children screaming, and we don't know where the source is coming from, and we're hearing something under the house every night, which wakes the kids up. And so O'Donnell decided that he would get a crew together, and they would go in to see if there was anything, under the house, or some sort of demonic entity that's, basically playing in the house. They couldn't find anything, and they thought maybe the family was hallucinating, or that Mr. Anderson was hallucinating. And then the kids started getting upset because they were being kept up all night. And this was around November, December, after Thanksgiving, and they were wondering what was going on. So what had happened is, since the kids were not getting, enough sleep, they were kept up all night long. Mr. Anderson decided that it would be a good idea that if he dressed up as Santa Claus, show up with presents, that the kids would enjoy that. I can talk over that music? Yeah, just turn it down, would you? Because I can't hear what I'm saying.
It's a jukebox.
I'm sorry. Because I'm like, I didn't know I had like a background or something. Is that Stevie Ray Vaughan? Stevie Ray Vaughan, I think, right? I don't mind Stevie Ray Vaughan, but still. So anyway, the kids were like being kept up all night long, and it's like they can't get sleep. And so Mr. Anderson thought, here's the deal: I'm going to go out, I'm going to buy presents for my kids, and I'm going to rent a Santa suit, and we're going to make this a great Christmas after all. So on Christmas Eve, everything was quiet. There was a lot of snow falling outside, the wind was blowing, there's a few things that were causing a few bumps at night, and Mr. Anderson thought, well, the kids are going to be really disturbed and scared, so wouldn't it be fun if he dresses up as Santa Claus and shows up with a pack of toys and a pack of, packages and everything else? So he did. He got the Santa suit, and he got all the packages up there. And so he went down and got by the tree and started pre-presents by the tree, and then it happened again. They heard the screaming, they heard the wailing, and then they heard this roaring sound, this growl, and this howling sound under the house, and I wonder what the heck. And then all of a sudden, coming down the chimney into the home was this very thin, gray creature. And at first they thought it looked like a greyhound, but then they noticed it had a big head. And the head looked like that of a wolf. And he stood there, and he was standing there eye to eye, and the children came downstairs because they heard the roughing up and the tearing up of the house. They came downstairs wondering what was going on, and there they saw Santa Claus standing there with presents and a werewolf on the other side of the room waiting to attack. And they were in this staring stance, and then all of a sudden the wolf made his mark. He lifted his paws and ripped into Mr. Anderson and killed him in front of his children.
It was a value deal.
I thought that was the most terrifying story I had heard in a long time. And I told Heather, I said, that should be a movie, a little anthology movie or something where, you never realize, you never hear any horror stories about Christmas, only Krampus. But it reminds me, and Wes and I were talking about that, Tales from the Crypt, or it was one of those Tales from the Crypt stories where a guy escapes from a mental institution, and he attacks a Santa Claus and gets in a Santa costume. And they're warning on the radio, the snow's falling outside, and they're warning on the radio, man escapes from mental institution and he attacks a Santa Claus, and so don't let him into the house if he's dressed as Santa Claus. And so the mother is in the house, this little girl comes in, Mommy, who did I let in? Look! And it's Santa Claus, and it's not Santa Claus, it's this killer that escaped from the insane asylum. It's kind of scary. Have you seen that? You've seen that, haven't you? Oh, you haven't seen? Oh, you should watch that. Tales from the Crypt, or was it? Yeah, you've seen it, haven't you? Yeah, it's a classic. Joan Collins was was in that one. She was yeah, it's a classic Santa murder. And then of course there's what's the movie? Silent Night, Deadly Night. You ever heard of that movie? Oh, you got a copy?
No, I saw it.
You saw it. I knew the guy who played Santa Claus, or at least the stunt guy who played Santa Claus. His name was Don Shanks. He actually played Mike Myers in Halloween 5.
Okay.
He's this big Indian dude. He played Nakoma in Grizzly Adams. And what's that?
Grizzly Adams.
Yeah, he was in Grizzly Adams, and then he played Mike Myers. It's funny because somebody had asked me the other day, I was on the air, they said, you sound like that radio guy in Halloween 6. And I said, I was going to play that part. I didn't get it, though. I was going to play the part of Harry Sims, but they changed the name to Barry Sims. They hired some no-name actor, but man, I was all excited. I was thinking, yeah, I'm going to be in this Halloween movie. But Don was telling me about Silent Night, Deadly Night, and how they filmed it in Utah. And that what they did is, they did a scene where a guy gets his head lopped off on a sled. And they said what they did is they took a goat and they chopped its head off and dressed it in a suit with a hat on and everything else. So it was a dead goat sitting on a sled, bleeding on the way down the hill. And I just thought, that's so hideous. They couldn't just do a special effect. No, they had to kill a goat.
That was special effect.
Yeah. Come to find out that this guy, his name's Akkad, the guy that produced these shows. His name was something Akkad, and somebody was saying that he dabbled in a lot of crazy occult stuff. So movies like Halloween, of course, are pretty spooky because he's the guy that produced them. But yeah, most of the Halloween films were filmed in Utah, of all places. Haddonfield, Illinois is basically the avenues of Utah, and that's why I was going to play that role, but I didn't get it because I tried out and they were filming it in the avenues. And then after they went back and did Halloween, they were doing it in some of the locations, and so now they've done the reboots. And Rob Zombie did the reboot and everything. So that's pretty much what I know about the Halloween movies. Pretty much, but the scary Halloween stories are kind of fun because there's always that old saying, there's scary ghost stories and tells of the glories of Christmases from long ago, and everybody's going, what do they mean Christmas scary stories? Well, every story that deals in Christmas is usually a scary story. I mean, you look at Dickens and what he wrote when he wrote his Christmas Carol. Those three ghosts basically were commentary on the way the world was at the time. And we're no different. We're the way it is now, especially when Scrooge was saying things like, better to let them die so that they can take away from the surplus. I mean, there are a lot of Malthusian bastards that exist today, like Bill Gates and all the other billionaires that have profited off COVID. And it's sort of the same way because it was like a lot of children in England at the time didn't see their 10th birthday. So when Charles Dickens wrote what he wrote, it got to the point where socialism was getting so bad in England that people had to go work in what were concentration camps. They were working in these workhouses. And Dickens saw that and he said, that's the way of the world. The world's going to end up that way someday. Everybody's going to be working in workhouses. They're not going to own anything. The government's going to own it all. And this was a little bit before Marx's time. So he was already seeing it like George Orwell saw. Dickens is like the Orwell of Christmas. He knew what was going on, and he actually wrote a lot of paranormal stuff into his stories. What was it? Tale of Two Cities. One of the main characters in Tale of Two Cities actually spontaneously combusts in the story because, Dickens had this thing for paranormal tall tales. He was into Fortiana and Tall Tales and all that stuff. So, Christmas can be fun and festive, and it is fun and festive, but the background of all of it is all based in a lot of terror, a lot of horror, especially for children when it comes to Krampus, when he's supposed to go from door to door and he'd find a bad kid, he'll beat the bad kid. Or you look at, even before that, there was the sacrifices that were given to Molech at that time, where they were saying, we